And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bashing us, him.
Yo. Good morning. It's 0 dark 30 for me. I don't even think the lights are going to come on by the time we finish this podcast. Oh, sorry about that. I don't know if you heard that. Anyway, good morning. How's everybody doing? We got our friends and listeners already here. Rafael Martinez, the Stone Sailor, King Cujo, Hassan. Good morning, brother. Joe Mango, Imp Franco, Cactus Joe, Javon Thomas, Michael Freeze. Many more jumping on with us already. This is.
We lost Eric bright and early, 7:30. Too early for his internet.
I already froze?
You already froze, dude.
Jesus.
Terrible. Their Starlink's a PZ.
Oh my God. I can't even tell you what I pay a month for this thing. It's insane. You know, and it's not like I'm in some remote area. Anyway, feds raid the residence of interim NYPD Commissioner Tom Donlon. John, let's get into it before I freeze.
Yeah, it's I don't know, people. I tell you, this was the twist in the movie that I wasn't expecting. I don't think any of us were. I had a bunch of people reach out to me that morning, the morning before it broke, saying that this dude's residence got raided in Manhattan. I was like, stop. I'm like, I don't even want to hear it. I was like, it's not true. So some like small account on Twitter had put out that the new police commissioner's residence got raided. And I'm like, you know how the rumor mill is. Like, you hear all this stuff. You get 5-10 breaking news tweets a day. This one's going here, that one's going there. You know, and I'm like, that's not happening. You know, that's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. And then sure enough, the news report, actually, he puts out a statement. The NYPD puts out a statement. He puts out from the NYPD that his residences were raided. So I thought that was pretty interesting because I guess apparently when the feds do show up at your house and search your home, that is a raid, unlike what we heard from John on Newsmax. You know, that's weird. I was like, I thought that wasn't a raid. Nah, none of our members were raided. So it's weird. So I guess the definition changed. I don't know.
You're quite mistaken. It's only a raid if you're in your underwear and you haven't brushed your teeth yet. If you brush your teeth and you're not in your underwear, you actually have pants on, it's not a raid. We need to ask John Shell. He needs to update the definition because that's the one thing I will give Tom Donlon is he took a preemptive strike and immediately was transparent and let the public know that his homes, and I say homes, were raided. So at this point, I just think it's really getting creepy when it comes to this administration. So at this point, we don't know why. No one knows why. It's pretty much theory. So I think that's where we should get into this, where our friends, listeners, and ourselves weigh in and what our opinions are, what our theories are at this point. I will say this. I'm just going to debunk this right away. I'm getting constant phone calls. Oh, this is happening because Adams was in opposition to the migrant crisis, and this is just a complete attack on Adams. Does anyone here actually believe that? I don't buy that at all. I don't see how he was in opposition to the migrant crisis. I see that he was in complete lockstep with open borders and lockstep with Sanctuary City. He was just asking for federal money. John, what are your thoughts?
Eric Adams, the official position in New York City is the borders shall remain open. Eric Adams, Deputy Mayor Ingrid Lewis Martin, on one press conference said that the border. I'm sorry, it wasn't even a press conference. She did a news interview, and she said the borders should close. Adams immediately came out in the news and said the official position in New York City is the border should remain open, and she misspoke. He was requesting federal money for a long time. That's about it. Other than that, he made the statement one time, this is going to crush the city. And he quickly backed off of it. And he supports that. And the whole entire time, this is the man who calls himself the Biden of Brooklyn. He calls himself that. Nobody calls him that, right? He calls himself the Biden of Brooklyn. He, the entire time, has been saying that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are doing a great job. So I'm not buying originally all the investigations that are dropping. We have investigations around migrant contracts. We have investigations around his appointments that were supposedly doing extortion racketeering schemes. As the days come out, we get more and more info about all of that stuff. I'm not buying that all of these investigations sparked because he made one statement. I'm sorry. I'm just not. These guys misspeak all the time. Democrats are notorious for misspeaking and gaffes and being for something and against something across the country, including Biden himself. I mean, I think he was the king of gaffes. So I'm not buying that this is a federal attack on Eric Adams. Like, oh, hey, let's pounce on Eric Adams, because ultimately it creates an upheaval in the election process in New York. Ultimately, it improves Donald Trump's chance of winning New York. The New York looks like it's in complete disarray. I don't see the Democrats doing that to each other. I don't. I see them telling him to shut up, and he shut up, and that's it. They're not going to go after him and continue to get him. But I understand the looks of the police commissioner who was just appointed a week ago, and now it's like, oh, it's an all out. It's a pounce on. On Eric Adams now. The feds are just going after him. So I understand where people are getting it from, but when you look at the totality of the circumstances, I'm just like, if you really believe that, then you're saying that our government is completely corrupted. It's okay for mayors to potentially steal hundreds of millions of dollars. It's okay for their police departments to be corrupt. It's all of this stuff's fine. They just better never, ever one time say anything about each other, or else the feds will come after them.
I agree with what you're saying here. So that's why, I always say opposition meets opportunity, and I'm always open to any conversation. But let's have a conversation that makes sense. I think this whole ideology that this is some type of political attack on Adams, I think is absolutely ridiculous. I don't think it has any teeth to it. So I'm definitely open to two separate conversations, right? So it's either, at this point, the conversations that we need to have. Is Eric Adams still in control, and is he making choices and decisions in his position? Or are federal prosecutors at this point in control, and they appointed Tom Donlon? So I think that's the conversation that we should have at this point. Is Tom Donlon still an appointee by Mayor Eric Adams? Or is Tom Donlon an outside appointment? We heard Marsha Clark say it's an ask by prosecutors. So is it an ask or is it tell? And I think at this point, that's where we should be having these conversations.
So I just Laura says Eric needs Starlink. Laura, not only does Eric have Starlink, he has the most expensive one with the most expensive package, and it still sucks. So Elon, if you're listening to this, fix it. Let's go.
Please. It's not cheap either. Let me tell you, it's not cheap.
It's not cheap. It's not cheap at all. So it's way more expensive than getting regular Wi-Fi. It's like 4 times the price. So yeah, all right. So did Eric Adams appoint Tom Donlon? So we know that Marsha Clark on ABC 7 says that it was an ask for Adams to go outside. It was rumored that Tanya Kinsella was going to be the PC, right? She was on the short list of names between her, Kaz, what's the other dude's name? Tariq. So me and Eric would have lost the bet. We were both wrong. I said Tariq Shepard. Eric said Kaz Daughtry. But apparently it was rumored that Tanya Kinsella was going to be the PC. And federal prosecutors, who again aren't in control in New York City, it's the mayor. So however you want to paint this is fine. But if they're telling you, well, you can't appoint someone from the inside, then you're under federal control, people, because we're under federal prosecutorial control. So if that's correct, that it was an ask for it to be from the outside, does that mean that they picked the outsider? I don't know. It's rumored that Donlon was on a short list for deputy mayor of public safety. So I don't know if that's true either. I don't know if Eric Adams knows Donlon or not. I know that when he held that press conference, he mispronounced his name twice. And he seemed completely detached, didn't know him. And we also know, what do we know about Eric Adams? We know that when he was campaigning, he said that my police commissioner is going to be a woman. I'm going to break that glass ceiling. My police commissioner is going to be a woman. So he has, he has Key Chan Sewell is the first woman police commissioner, right? She's actually the first Black woman police commissioner too. So he breaks that glass ceiling. She leaves in a year. We still don't know why she left. I have my suspicions, but we still don't know why she left. She leaves, and then he appoints the first Latino police commissioner. When he does that, he says that the NYPD has a great crime fighting profile, but it has a terrible image problem. When you look at the top of the NYPD, you don't see the youth. You don't see the diversity. So when Ed Caban steps down, after only one investigation, while Eric Adams has several investigations against him, Ed Caban steps down in light of this investigation in his home being raided, even though he wasn't the only one in the Adams administration. Eric Adams appoints an old white man. So, I mean, it's really questionable. Does he know him or does he not? I'm going to say right now that ultimately, my guess is this. Ultimately, Eric Adams appointed Tom Donlon, but he got his name from the outside. That's how I feel about it.
Wow. Listen, I can't be grateful enough. Thank you so much, Rafael Martinez. Rafael Martinez, that is above and over the top. I mean, we're so thankful on this podcast. We really appreciate it. It says, I got to laugh too. It says, for Eric's better internet, God bless both of you. Hand salute. I salute you, brother. Rafael Martinez dipped into his pocket, gave $100 on the podcast. I can't thank you enough. Good morning, and God bless you. And God bless everybody that's here, our friends and listeners to the podcast. I'm so appreciative. So with that being said, I think it's quite interesting. So in some of the conversations that I've had with friends and different people about what's going on, because everyone's quite interested in this, and not just New York, people from all over the country. John and I have built a network of friends from doing this podcast, and everyone's curious about what's going on in New York, because what goes on in New York affects everyone in this country, because everyone kind of mirrors and adopts this style of policing and this, and it's iconic, New York. So what's interesting about this, John, is the ask. So I've kind of correlated to this. Is it an ask or it's a tell? And I would tell some of the guys, the prosecutors just asked Adams to play somebody. Well, I said, do you remember working in the police department? Sometimes your commanding officers would ask you to do something, but they weren't really asking. They were telling you. It may be suggestive. So I think if this was really an ask, and they were just asking Eric Adams to appoint someone that he would see fit, who's an outside, I think the wording would be more of a recommendation or suggestive. But for me, the word ask could be mirror of what's actually a tell. So at this point, I haven't totally made up my mind, but I do think at this point that Eric Adams is not under complete control. I mean, let's be honest. Let's say at this point, it's come to the point with Eric Adams' appointments that we're not asking the question, who is under a federal corruption probe? Now we have to ask, who's not under a probe? I mean, we've never seen anything like this. We've never seen an administration where everyone is being probed. It's Miranda. It's Timothy Pearson. It's Philip Banks. It's Terrence Banks. It's Ed Caban. It's now Tom Donlon. It's everyone in this circle. Everyone that surrounds Adams. So how could everyone have a cloud of suspicion, but not Eric Adams? So it's quite interesting. You have to say to yourself, would you elect Eric Adams again if this probe never goes anywhere? Because I think you want someone in a leadership position or a managerial position that makes good choices and makes good decisions.
Yeah, Rafael, thanks, brother. Thanks, we appreciate it, dude. Yeah, no, I'm with you, dude. I'm totally with you. So it's an ask. No, it's a tell. You will go on the outside. Does that mean, hey, you're going to take this old white guy, Tom Donlon? I don't know. I'm not sold on yes or no either way. I'm thinking from a lot of the stuff I'm hearing that there is some type of connections that Adams went to the outside, possibly to Bratton, possibly to Miller, and they said, hey, here's this guy. He's a Fed. He's an outsider. He'd be good. He's familiar with the NYPD. Get him. And then, I don't know that federal prosecutors said, hey, we want you to go outside and this is who we're thinking you should do. I don't know that. I don't think so. I think Tom Donlon was an appointment of ultimately an appointment of Eric Adams, but ultimately Eric Adams went outside. Right? Because if you're doing what the federal prosecutors are asking you to do, that's a problem. And then the other problem is why did Ed Caban step down then? If this was just an investigation, why did Ed Caban step down? And then if this was just an investigation, why can't you appoint somebody from the upper echelon of the NYPD? If this is just a nonsensical thing, why is Eric Adams going along with it? And that's the things that like no one's even asking. No one's even talking about that. So this comes out Friday night, late. I was actually sleeping. I didn't even know this happened. Weird. I was having some weird ass dreams. I'm not going to get into it, but I wake up in the middle of the night and I see my phone's blaring and buzzing, and I'm like, holy shit, that guy was right. I'm like, I can't even believe this. I was like, I can't even believe this is real. I thought I was dreaming. Like, I thought I was still having a dream. And so this is the statement from the police commissioner. On Friday, September 20th, federal authorities executed search warrants at my residences. We have to note that out because I put a tweet out like almost immediately after that, and I glazed over the fact it said residences. So search warrants and residences, they went to multiple locations. They took material that came into my possession approximately 20 years ago and are unrelated to my work with the New York City Police Department. This is not a department matter, and the department will not be commenting. Thomas G. Donlon, Interim Police Commissioner. So, I think he kind of tells everybody what the hell happened here.
Let's not forget that Eric Adams was so expressive that he has an amazing bench of the police department. And he started actually naming the bench, Cass Daughtry, Tiny Kinsella, and so on. And if that's the case, if your bench is so good and so exclusive, why would you have to get an outside pick? So I agree with you, John. At this point, my opinion is that it was an ask, which is really a tell by prosecutors that you have to get someone from the outside. That doesn't mean that the federal prosecutors will actually make his selection. So I agree. I think at this point that Eric Adams made the appointment, but it was a tell by the prosecutors. And I do think he found someone that he can find some connection and some nexus. So we're hearing that there's a connection to John Miller, maybe someone else with the police department. And I think that's where it's at. Because according to Eric Adams, if Eric Adams is a man that he stands on his soapbox, then he would have went with the initial image that he spoke about. It would have been either a woman of color, or it would have been someone who's a first of some ethnicity to detract from the old white, pale, male, and stale. But again, we went full circle and went back to old male, pale, and stale. The only difference is he's not originally NYPD. He's an outside source. So it's quite interesting at this point. Excuse me. But what I find peculiar about this, and I'm not sure if I'm buying this part, where Tom Donlon says it's unrelated. Because if there is a corruption probe for him, it is still related. It's related to his position at this point, which would mean he would also have to step down. So we have to have a system in place. If Ed Caban is under a federal probe and he had to step down, then the same standard should apply for Tom Donlon. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, based upon that standard, Eric Adams should step down. Based upon that standard, anyone that got their phone taken during that raid should step down. Based upon that standard, Deputy Mayor of Public Safety Phil Banks should step down. Based upon that standard, First Deputy Mayor Sheena Wright should step down. Based upon that standard, Banks, the school's chancellor, should step down as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if we're going to apply same standards here, why did Ed Caban step down? And I hear the Hispanics saying, "Hey, why is he being the fall guy for all this?" And I hear it. I hear the whole thing. Like, there's numerous investigations. Why was it just him that had to step down? It's to me, it's mind-boggling. It's either something's there and he has to step down, or nothing's there and let's see how these investigations play out. Like what we're doing in Eric Adams' case, where he has several. Pat Jordan asked, could this be the first indicted police commissioner? So many firsts. You know what? I got to look that up, but I've been doing a lot of research, and I've been researching about Jimmy Walker. Jimmy Walker was the mayor of New York City. He was actually called the night mayor, or the nightclub mayor, they used to call him, which is very funny because Eric Adams is called the nightlife mayor, right? That's his nickname. So Jimmy Walker was actually like a snappy dresser, right? Everybody liked the way Jimmy Walker dressed. He always had fancy suits. He went out on the town. He went everywhere. He was a big socialite. Same thing with Eric Adams, right? And Roger Stone and Sal Greco continuously say how Eric Adams is the best dressed mayor since Jimmy Walker. They've been saying that from day one. From day one of his appointment, they've been comparing him to Jimmy Walker. So I was reading the other day about Jimmy Walker. I actually put a post out about it because I was said, how many police commissioners has a mayor had in one term? So right now, the most amount of police commissioners in one term for New York City history is 3. Eric Adams is tied with Jimmy Walker for appointing 3 police commissioners in his term, in his first term. But his term ain't over, his first term. And now we just see the police commissioner get raided. So Eric Adams might break that record. Shortly after that, though, the nightclub mayor, or the night mayor, Jimmy Walker, actually stepped down. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was the governor in New York at that time and was contemplating removing Jimmy Walker from office. Not a power that's ever been excised in New York history. Never been excised. So Jimmy Walker stepped down. So there's a lot of coincidences around there. I want to look that up, though. I'm definitely going to look that up. Was there a police commissioner that was indicted? I believe I heard in 1901 there was, but I could be wrong, and I want to clarify that before I say that. I'm going to look that up. That's actually a very good question.
Yeah, I've been trying to get the information on that also, and I do believe that there was one before. But when it comes to police commissioners under a mayor, I would say that Eric Adams is actually holds the record, because Jimmy Walker had 3, but they were 3 inside NYPD guys, where Eric Adams now has 3, but his third one is an outside pick. So I would say his is actually far more egregious, and this is a first of any and a first of many when it comes to the New York City Police Department. And I really do think at this point, I've been using this terminology. I think at this point, it's become, this administration, it's creepy. It's creepy that everything that surrounds this administration, to the point that we've gotten to the point that the question is, who is not under federal corruption probe in Eric Adams' circle? Crowdsource The Truth 11, good morning. He says Bernard Kerik was indicted in 2007. You're right, but what we're talking about here is who was indicted while they were a police commissioner. So, to my knowledge, it's possibly one. I was thinking the same thing as you, John, but we're going to have to do some more research before we actually
well, I don't consider Bernard, but listen, even though Bernard Kerik was indicted for things that when he was the police commissioner, it was 2007. He was out of office for years. That investigation sparked years after he was the police commissioner.
Yeah, that's what I was saying right here. That's why I said he was a police commissioner, but when he was indicted, he was already out of office for several years, and it's completely unrelated and has no bearing on him as a police commissioner. I mean, was he a police commissioner and indicted? Yes, but was What we're talking about here is who was actually indicted as a police commissioner while they're in office. So I guess we'll have to find out. If anybody actually gets factual information on that, if you do, please put up in the chat. Our friends and listen to the podcast. That would be great. In the meantime, we will definitely do our research and try to get the information on that. So, John, want to get into the article? Let's jump right into it.
Sure. Before we get in the article, though, Scott Greco says the PC's house gets raided and says it's not a department matter. How is that not a department matter? Give me a break. Scott, I agree with you 100% because what do we know traditionally? Anything that happens to you as a police officer is a department matter, right? If your neighbor rings your doorbell and punches you in the face, it's a department matter. It's like, I don't know why he punched me. He just rang my doorbell and punched me in the face. It's a department matter. But I think, when we look at this statement, what the police commissioner is sitting here telling you exactly what happened. They took documents that came into my possession 20 years ago. So he had confidential information that he brought home when his work in the feds, right? And somebody, whether it was someone in his inner NYPD circle there were numerous people who were rumored to be very furious about this outside appointment. Was it someone that knew something about him? Because I've heard a lot of things about this man myself. Not good things, by the way. I've heard a lot of different things from very credible sources. And so was it someone in his inner NYPD circle, or was it someone that he worked with that was like, screw this guy. I know that he has documents and he never gave them back. And he gave that information to the feds. And when it comes to confidential information and confidential material on the federal level, it's a lot different than probable cause to get a search warrant to come in your home. Let's say if they're looking for guns or drugs, the threshold is a lot less. So I don't know if they could do it based upon just an anonymous tip, but I'm saying that they might be able to when it comes to classified information. Not 100% sure of that, but I believe so. And I think that's the same things that happened to Donald Trump, right? When they went to his residences to get the classified material, and the same thing that happened to Joe Biden. I believe that's that same type of warrant. I forget what warrant that's called. Is it a FISA warrant? I don't remember. I could be wrong. But I think the threshold's a lot less there. So, like, Eric, what do you think? I'm going to pull the article up. What do you think about that statement, though? They came in and they took materials that were in my possession from 20 years ago.
Well, I think about that statement. I think that you're exactly right. I think at this point, what it says to me, though, is that this is something that was kind of like a sleeper cell. And that if he never came out of retirement, this is something that could be overlooked by the FBI at this point in the feds. But the fact that he's actually in a position of power that could have been an anonymous tip. I'm not sure exactly how that works, if there's an anonymous tip or someone has to be identified. But I do know, and I agree with you, from the information I have and the research that I've done, the threshold is much different. And you do not need a probable cause warrant to obtain documents. And what do we know? Not only did they respond to his residence to obtain documents, they left with documents. So there is something credible there. And I agree with you. I had said early in this episode, and I'll continue to say that according to Tom Donlon, it's unrelated. And that is not the case at all, because when you're in a position of law enforcement, if your boots on the ground, and leadership should set the example, if your boots on the ground, everything that you do on duty and off duty is reflective of your position as a law enforcement officer under your oath of the Constitution. Absolutely. If you have an argument with your wife and someone calls 911, guess what? That's now an issue that's related to your work. If you have an incident, a car accident, and someone leaves the scene, or God forbid, you unknowingly leave the scene, well, you have a problem there. That's also related to your position, law enforcement. So the same thing goes for Tom Donlon, especially he's the police commissioner at this point. I don't know if that's a good question, John. I'm going to look into that. If it's anonymous tip is enough because it's at the federal level, it could be. The timing's impeccable. But I do believe that this surfaced because he came out of retirement. It seems to me that this is something that could have stayed in bed while he's in retirement, which is reflective also that our government is corrupt. Let's make no mistake about it. One thing I learned, I spent almost a year in Asia, and through a lot of conversations and my own observations, a lot of people in Asia would say it's so corrupt here that it's honest. But yet in America, it's so corrupt because they want to pretend it's not. And a lot of people had said that to me in different conversations, and those were my observations also.
So Raphael says, what does he say? He says, let a regular MOS, which is a member of service, for those of you that don't know, have his house raided by the feds for something outside of the scope of his or her employment with the NYPD. Do you think they would get modified or suspended as a result? And the answer to that question is 100%. They would at least be modified as a result of that. 100, like, again, it doesn't matter what it's for. It doesn't matter if it's about your current state of employment or about your past. Oh, you know what? You know why they came to my house? Because they had me on tape at Diddy's house at a freak out 20 years ago before I even got on the job. Right? Oh, okay. Yeah, you're modified while we do this investigation, or possibly even suspended, depending on what the allegation is. So yeah, rules for thee, not for me. The Stone Sailor says, I bet Eric Adams was in those freak offs with P. Diddy. They got the videotapes. I'll tell you right now, I already said it. I think I said it a few podcasts ago. I would bet money that he was actually at some of those freak offs. He's been known to attend Diddy parties. It was rumored when Diddy's mansion got raided. I think it was back in March or May. I forget the month. It was either March or May when his home got raided. It was rumored that Adams flew out to Miami. He definitely flew out to Miami, but it was rumored he was hanging out with Diddy while he was in Miami. So again, they're friends. Obviously gave him the key to the city. I would not shock me at all, and I would 100% bet money that he was at a freak off. Eric, what do you think? Freak off? No freak off? Eric Adams.
I just hope if he was at the freak off that he had an opportunity to get the same freak off lubricant that Dr. Varma had, because it's on sale by the finest Unfiltered. We have our freak off lubricant if needed. But yeah, listen, there's no doubt in my mind that Eric Adams was at those freak offs. There's no doubt. I would put my last dollar on it if I was a betting man. I mean, listen, that's his buddy. And he went to Miami at the same time. John, you and I always say there's no coincidence. He was there. He likes to party. And there's no doubt in my mind he was at these freak offs. You know, now, do I really care? I don't care what he does in his personal time, but we know that they're out there trafficking people, they're drugging people. That's what I want to know. I want to know if Eric Adams was taking part of that, or did he witness that and he never said a word? That's what I'm curious about.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you can't have a blindfold on and be the mayor of New York City. You can't be hanging out with Harvey Weinstein and P. Diddy and not see anything. Oh, I didn't see it. I didn't even know. I had no idea that there were little kids there naked and all this other stuff. I didn't know that they were drugging people and raping them. I had no idea. I had no idea that he had all these tapes. You can't turn there's a lot of things you can't turn a blind eye to. And that's why I'm like, I'm not turning a blind eye to the fact that this appears to be the biggest corruption scandal in New York history, possibly in the country ever. And that's saying a lot, dude. That's saying a lot. This is the most high-level corruption scandal ever. So, I mean, I'm not turning a blind eye to it just because he appoints some dude who gets his house raided because he did, is holding on to classified material a big deal? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know what the documents were. You know, that's the other thing. What were the documents? We don't know. And why'd you take them home? I never took anything home from the police department. Yeah. Feds raid home of interim NYPD Commissioner Thomas Donlon week after his predecessor, Edward Caban, resigned. This is where my upcoming movie called Crumbs gets put in the fiction section because nobody's going to believe this. Federal authorities raided the home of NYPD Interim Commissioner Tom Donlon on Friday, just over a week after his predecessor, Ed Caban, resigned following an FBI raid at his residence. Donlon admitted to the search in a brief statement released by the department late Saturday night, saying the authorities took materials that came into my possession 20 years ago and are unrelated to my work with the New York City Police Department. He added that the department would not be commenting further as not an NYPD matter. Donlon, who was pulled out of retirement from his federal law enforcement career to be the city's top cop, did not specify which federal agency came to his home. Sources told the Post authorities are looking into whether he took classified documents while he was with the FBI and Department of Homeland Security. The feds are sending a message to Eric Adams that no one is safe, as several members of his administration and inner circle are under investigation, another source said. I love these anonymous sources that give the weakest statements. I love them. And then here's the minister of propaganda, Fabian Levy. As we repeatedly say, we expect all team members to fully comply with any law enforcement inquiry, City Hall spokesperson Fabian Levy said. A law enforcement source told the Post that the feds are sending a message to Eric Adams that no one is safe, as several members of his administration and inner circle are under investigation. What do you think about these sources? You're on mute.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, for one, if there's anonymous sources, first of all, I think how it's at this point. I mean, someone's got to speak up. Yeah, this is insane what's going on with this administration. Again, we have to go back to what we were saying. It's not about this point with this administration. Who's under federal corruption probe? It's who's not under probe. Is there anyone in this administration that's not under a probe? It's everyone in the circle except for Eric Adams. Eric Adams somehow just makes bad choices. It's almost like that woman that, she goes out, everyone she dates happens to be a bad guy. Well, maybe you're making bad choices. Maybe I get it, you're the victim, but maybe you just make bad choices. And maybe Eric Adams makes bad choices because he's bad himself. Croty to put an interesting comment here. I think there's some real deep state stuff. I don't know if I agree with this, but it's an interesting comment. Wild conspiracy here. But do you think the raid on Donlon may be a ruse to make people think he's not a plant by the feds? Like, look, we raided him. He's not one of us, but he still is. That's some real deep state stuff. Is it possible? Of course it's possible, but I don't think so at this point. I just don't see that. What do you think, John?
Listen, anything's possible at that point. You know what I mean? Anything's possible. But is he a plant from? I honestly just think it's completely unrelated. I really do think. I don't think it's unrelated to his employment. I think it's a big deal that the police commissioner's house got raided. But I don't think this has anything to do with Eric Adams. I think this has everything to do with Tom Donlon. I think this has everything to do with. I mean, if I'm leaning so heavily on the fact that there's a lot of people that he worked with that didn't like him, and that's why there's so many stories floating around about him. And I'm leaning on the fact that somebody knew that he had classified documents at his house, and they were angered by the fact he's now in the news, and they called up and said that this dude has classified documents at his house, and they went and took them. What the classified documents are, that's the conspiracy, right? Because that's what I want to know. Oh, he had classified. What were they? Were they like old rosters, or was it like something, or did he have tapes of Diddy? Like, which was it? Like, or did he have a tape of Diddy with Eric Adams on it? Or like, what's the stuff that he had? Is that would lead me to really draw my further conclusion. But my conclusion now, and I lean so heavily on, is that that's exactly what happened. Somebody he didn't work with doesn't like him. I also know, listen, he has, I said it again, and I'll say it again. If you can't appoint someone from the inside, that means that they were all compromised. So the first thing I would have did as the police commissioner is bring in the whole upper echelon of the NYPD. I wouldn't even interview them. There's no need to interview them. I would have said, listen, thank you guys. I no longer need you serving in your position. You could all stay. You'll be promoted. You'll be demoted back to the rank of captain, or you could retire. I'll respect your decision. I'll give you 1 week. I'll give you 1 week to make the decision. Because if you can't appoint from the inside, they're all compromised. So they hate him too. So let's not pretend like everybody's on board. I know you see Kaz kissing his ass on the thing. You see everybody kissing his ass on social media, but that's not the real case. The real case is they're like, who is this guy? Why is he here? And I would not put it past the little rats that are in the NYPD themselves to make frivolous allegations as well, or act on some rumor they've heard as well, writing letters, calling federal agencies, right? I mean, this happens every day in the New York City Police Department.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would say you definitely give them a lot of credit, and I think most of them are bumbling idiots. They're a bunch of bums at the upper echelon right now, the New York City Police Department, and I don't think that they're thinking that far ahead. I think this was very specific. This was a specific document or documents about something very specific in nature, and they actually retrieved it. So I do think this came from someone that possibly worked with him, or someone that is in that circle, maybe someone that is working with the feds that has a problem with the character letter that he's written for someone who's pretty much nefarious. So what's interesting about that, John, do you think, because I was thinking about this, one, I do think he should step down at this point because that's a standard now. Do you think he should tell the public what the specifics are of what documents the feds were looking for and what they retrieved? Or do you think that he should keep it quiet now at this point to protect himself? How do you think he will move forward? And if so, does that affect him?
Well, I mean, I don't think that he's at liberty to even say at that point. And I think that, that's part of whatever that investigation is. I think that he was told that he can't say anything. I mean, I think in the best interest of transparency, yeah, we all want to know. We want to know what agency raided your home and what the documents were. I don't think we're going to get that, though. I just don't while it's under investigation. I do ultimately think that I don't know. Right now, I lean on who knows what the classified documents were. Like they went and they took classified documents from Trump. He didn't get arrested. He didn't, same thing happened with Biden. They just went and took them. They took them back. Who knows what they were? Why other people know this, why he has them for 20 years is another thing. Like if you came to my house looking for something from 20 years ago, there's no way I even know where it is. I'll be like, what? I'm like, I don't have it. I did construction at some point and threw it in the dumpster. Like, I don't know where, like, I wouldn't know where those things are. So I don't know, man. I don't know. Like it's, yeah. Do I want to know? Yeah, 100%. I think we all want to. I think it matters. And I think this is just another distraction on the Eric Adams administration. But I ultimately, whether it stems from Eric Adams' other appointments trying to sabotage Tom Donlon or Tom Donlon's old coworkers trying to sabotage Tom Donlon, and deservingly so, depending on what it is, which we don't know. I don't think it really has anything to do with all of the numerous scandals around Eric Adams. I don't think it's the feds targeting Eric Adams because, again, it has nothing to do with him. So if this dude, let's say he has like some real bad stuff and they wind up locking him up, what does that have to do with Eric Adams other than he made a horrible appointment, which every appointment he's made has been horrendous. So, I mean, it just follows suit. It's like, all right, well, yeah, Eric Adams is a terrible manager. He's completely incompetent and he picks people with low integrity. That's all that matters. I don't think this is another attack on Adams. It just looks bad for him.
Yeah, I hate that people are trying to make Adams into this type of martyr or some type of iconic figure that's under political attack, that everyone in his circle has a cloud of suspicion. Everyone has a shroud of judgment. And Eric Adams is a victim of this, and they're picking on him. It's almost, if that was the case, then you could argue and say that none of these people were appointed by Eric Adams, that someone put them there to put Eric Adams in this position. Let's not forget, Eric Adams is the mayor of New York City. And as the mayor, he makes the decisions on these appointments. He appointed the New York City Sheriff Miranda. He appointed Deputy Mayor Philip Banks. He appointed Timothy Pearson. He appointed Ed Caban. These appointments are Eric Adams' choices. These are his decisions. And Eric Adams stood by it. He continues to double down and say that his bench in the police department is fantastic, naming names that we know are just complete idiots, that are bums, that have no business even being a thought of the police commissioner. And yet, how can he tell you at the same time these amazing things that Police Commissioner Ed Caban did, at the same time telling you that he needs to step down? He's telling you we need an outside entity PC, but we have an amazing bench. This guy talks at both sides of his mouth. It's amazing. And yet there's people that still believe that Eric Adams is a good mayor, that he actually is in control of New York City, that he believes in public safety, that he believes in a flourishing city. And yet he stands by open borders. He stands by a sanctuary city. He doesn't push back on any of that. And everything in his circle is a cloud of judgment. So at this point, I just think at some point, hopefully the feds actually bring some transparency and some clarity to what's going on, because this anxiety is creating more unknown and more worriness for New York City residents, for the police department, for all the agencies. And this, I think, is having a major impact and a major distraction from New York City actually flourishing. It's a distraction from public safety. It's a distraction from people having trust in New York City itself and this administration. It's just a complete distraction for everyone. It creates more anxiety and it creates more anger.
Yeah, so Tex Fortson says the fact they seized without asking means they are just harassing Adams. Adams may deserve it, but this is a cheap, strong-arming law enforcement. So I think, again, I think you just jump into conclusions here, because it depends what the documents are. If the documents, like I said, are some rosters, then I'll agree with you. But if the documents are really something that should have never left the federal building, then I'm going to completely disagree with you. You know, so I think I think your statement really goes on what is it that they took? Because if it was just some rosters, yeah, 100%, they didn't have to raid his home. They could have just said, hey, listen, we know you're in possession of these documents, hand them over. Or maybe that's just not how they operate. I don't know. Like, I don't really know why they did or why they didn't. It depends what it is. But again, like I said, if it was some menial document, how would you know where they were 20 years later? 20 years later and be like, oh, yeah, I would be like, I don't even know what they're talking. They said that I had some documents. He didn't say, oh, they were looking for some documents. He said they took some documents. So, which means he had them still for 20 years. So I think your statement, I'll like I said, I'll agree with you if it's nonsense. If it's something that is potentially has criminal evidence on it, I totally disagree with you. Because and then Miriam Wilson says, why does it take to be in the position for PC for it to come out? And Miriam, you know how the world works, right? Why did it take for all of these women to go after Donald Trump when he decided to run for president? Like, why'd they wait that long? You know, now all of a sudden your name gets in the spotlight. People see dollar signs. People's emotions about you come out. Jealousy comes out. You know, why did it take 20 years for all these things to come out? Why did it take 20 years for the sexual assault allegation against Eric Adams to come out? Why did it take all these things 20 years? I mean, you constantly see it when you're in the public eye, when your name moves up. You see people become under attack, not just by their opposition, their political opposition, but by just random people that they've dealt with in the public. It's like, who was the dude that they were trying to get on the Supreme Court? Was it Kavanaugh? And like this lady was talking about when they were in high school, like I think that was 40 years prior. They were in high school, and he's like, I don't even know who that is. Like, yeah, I know her from the yearbook, but like, I don't know what she's talking about. Like, why'd she wait 40 years to now say, oh, this guy did something to me at a high school party? I don't know. You know, you become in the public eye, and then all of a sudden, all these allegations come out against you. And like I said, I really think it's jealousy of either Eric Adams' inner circle or his former whatever you want to call it, people that he worked with in the FBI.
I agree with you about the documents, right? Because it happened to me the other day. I had to retrieve a couple years worth of taxes applying for something, and I don't have a lot of documents, right? In the day and age of electronics and electronic files, I mean, you're probably the same thing. I barely even receive any mail anymore. Everything's pretty much electronically, so I don't have that much documents anymore. And it took me about a good 20 minutes to find my taxes. I couldn't find them. Like, where did I put these things? I had no idea. I couldn't find my taxes. And that's pretty important for just a layman person. And so that's why I reflect on this saying, a document that's 20 years old, that they were actually able to find and retrieve this specific document, to me says it's something quite important. Because again, just going back to myself, just being the average Joe, I couldn't even find my own taxes. But for him to find a document that's 20 years old, I mean, think about it. Most of our listeners are law enforcement, especially the NYPD, active and retired. Think back when you first went into the police department, they gave you that big patrol guide, not some of the new guides. I think you only get it electronically, but they give you that big patrol guide. And if you remember, John, they wanted you to save the top cover. Good luck. Like you're going to say, and your career is 20 years. I don't have mine. Did you have yours? Mine was lost.
Oh no, the top cover. I was actually looking for that. Couldn't find it. Top cover of the patrol guide.
I have no idea what that thing was. I know. I remember they said hold on to this for 20 years. Like, yeah, right. I don't know where that thing is. So for this guy to actually have a document from 20 years old, and they looked in several residences, not even one residence. I mean, it's quite important. The timing is impeccable. I think this did come out because he's in a position of power right now. And you're right, John. A lot of times people will let things sleep. They'll let things lie. Sleeping dogs lie. But when you're in a position of power, you know what, people will identify. Or maybe it reminds them, you know what? Let me get that person. Let me get that guy. So this is interesting. Again, this administration, everything that surrounds this administration at this point, it's creepy. It's creepy because we all don't know. We're all just coming up with our ideas, trying to make sense of this. But really, none of us know. Let's be honest. None of us know anything. It's just a matter of time before we get to actually find out what's been, what's the jack in the box. I mean, it's going to come out. We're going to be, oh, you were right about this. You were right about that. That's what this is coming. It's like Comedy Hour.
100%. All right. So we got 705 people in here. We're about 51 minutes in. We're going to go for about another hour, and then we'll wrap this up. But we're talking about the feds raiding the new interim police commissioner, Tom Donlon, a little over after a week of former NYPD police commissioner stepping down for his own being raided by the feds. So, yeah, it's a pretty unbelievable story. Joe Mango says, John and Eric, William Stephen Devery was the superintendent of the NYPD. He was arrested and charged with bribery on February 5th, 1897. So I think there we go right there. William Stephen Devery. So that's who. So there actually was someone who was arrested and indicted on bribery. There you go. Like I said, I think there was somebody in 1901 too. I don't know why that number is sticking in my head, but it's definitely sticking in my head. And I think that was the last time. So again, the NYPD. We talk about last 40 years of the NYPD, and it really, like, there was corruption scandals, but they were isolated corruption scandals, right? I think the last time we saw systemic corruption throughout the NYPD was during the Serpico era, and then a little bit into the Dowd era. But at the top, there was some still political corruption, some type scandals that they hid, things of that nature. But I don't think anything like what we're seeing now. But if we have to look at the NYPD as a whole, as an organization, I think if we take from its existence to now, it's only fair to say that the NYPD has been a systemically corrupt organization for the majority of its well, I don't know why I can't talk today, of its existence. So I don't know what the hell's going on with me. I'm getting tongue-tied. But I mean, in my opinion, that's how I see it. I see the last 30 years as that not really being true. But what we're seeing now is, we have a mayor who really alleviated a lot of the stuff, alleviated a lot of the checks and balances, took them away, removed things that happened. And what we're seeing is, hey, the appearance of corruption appears to be seeping back in, and not only seeping in throughout the ranks and files where we're still getting those isolated incidents, but we're seeing up at the top where they're all like the actors and the producers and everyone in Hollywood when they're at a Harvey Weinstein party or a P. Diddy party. Oh, I didn't see nothing. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on here, and that's what's going on. And that in itself is corruption, especially when you swore an oath to the United States Constitution and you swore an oath to protect and serve. And that's why that's why police officers are held to a higher standard. And unfortunately, what we're seeing is not so many people hold themselves to that higher standard.
Yeah, no one expects you, when you take an oath to be the best human being ever, that you have to walk such a fine line and never make mistakes. But at the same token, when you see something, you have to say something. John, you and I spoke about this quite often, and we both agree. And I'm sure plenty of our friends and listeners agree that as a cop or someone in law enforcement, you should have the fortitude and the courage to actually identify corruption. You should not report corruption anonymously. Absolutely not, because I think that's cowardice. We have to, especially in law enforcement, stand in the face of adversity. Also, what's expected in law enforcement is to make good, sound decisions. And ultimately, Mayor Eric Adams is the de facto leadership for the NYPD, which is why I think it's a great conversation that we've had on numerous episodes. And our friends and listeners, I hope that you have these conversations also. Do you think that New York City can continue to have the structure that we have as the mayor with such extreme authority that all the appointments are under his authority and his decision? And look, we see it here now. If we have someone who's not a good mayor and we don't have a governor that has the desire to remove Mayor Eric Adams, which is another question, which we have to start looking at what's going on the state level. Why are we not talking about Tish James at this point? And also Governor Kathy Hochul when it comes to this, because I think there's a connection, there's a nexus there also. But again, I think we need to move to elected officials and elected sheriffs and put the power in the people. Is Mayor Eric Adams voted by the people? Yes. But again, he has an extreme amount of power where he appoints the sheriff, he appoints the FDNY commissioner, he appoints the NYPD commissioner. And we see how the whole ball of wax could just completely unravel at this point when we don't have the right appointments. If nothing comes out of this, that's one thing. I would be completely surprised. I think everyone here would be shocked as well. But I think that everything we see this bottleneck, and I think we come to the point that something is going to come out of this, and not just one thing. I think this thing has different facets, different aspects, and we're going to see this thing completely unravel. And this is going to be numerous onions to peel back to actually get to the point where we could get New York City in a place that we could trust. And ultimately, who suffers for this whole thing? Who suffers for this probe? It's the boots on the ground in the NYPD. It's the boots on the ground when it comes to the FDNY. It's the boots on the ground for the Sheriff's Department. We've heard Ingrid talk about the union president for the Sheriff's Department, the hostile environment that they're working in. Everyone's affected by this. Everyone. Make no mistake about it. It's not just at the upper level. It's actually more predominant at the lower level with the boots on the ground, and they pay the ultimate price.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it just gives a black eye to the entire department, So what else we got? So Adams tapped Donlon, an NYPD outsider, to take over New York City's interim commissioner on September 12th after Caban, an NYPD vet of 30 years, abruptly resigned amid a federal investigation. Electronic devices were seized by federal agents at Caban and other city officials' home as part of sources describing as a sweeping corruption probe to influence and potential influence peddling. Caban cited the media frenzy surrounding the investigation as well as the probe into his own twin brother as a distraction for the department in his resignation letter. Others in Adams' circle are ensnared in the federal dragnet, where Deputy Mayor for Public Safety Phil Banks, Tim Pearson, School Chancellor David Banks, and their brother Terrence Banks, and First Deputy Mayor Sheena Wright, who is either a live-in partner with David Banks or rumored to have been married in secret to David Banks, but they live together. On Friday, the city's head of asylum seekers, Molly Schaefer, was subpoenaed by federal authorities as part of the probe into Pearson. Donlon, a Bronx native, but I know a couple of people from the Bronx, boasts a long resume in law enforcement at the local, state, federal, and international levels. The 57-year-old previously served as New York's Director of Homeland Security, ran the FBI's National Threat Assessment Center, and the FBI NYPD Joint Terrorism Task Force. He then accepted a position as Interim Police Commissioner. Donlon vowed to uphold the highest standards of integrity and transparency and support our dedicated officers who put their lives on the line every day to keep us safe. So there you go. That's Tom Donlon. But Sal Greco put out some interesting stuff about Tom Donlon, I believe, yesterday, and I'm going to pull that up in a minute. What do you think overall about that article? Does it leave you with more questions, less questions? What do you think about it?
Oh, absolutely. That's all we're surrounded by. It's just more questions at this point. There's no transparency. We don't know what's going on. I think at this point he has to step up. Choice. I would say that's a standard for now on. And unfortunately, because of Mayor Eric Adams, it's come to the point we're going to have a system and actually lay out what the standard is. You know, if there's some type of probe, if you have a raid at your home, that immediately you step down within 24 or 48 hours or something. Something has to be done. You know, someone had put a great point here. Let me see if I can find it here. And it's about Tom Donlon. So many comments flying in. You can't even keep up with these things. Let me see if I can find it. I can't even find it at this point. There's so many flying in. And Marlon makes a great point also. Marlon, good morning. Oh, here it is. Matt O'Brien. This is a good point to look at. I would have to believe Donlon knew this was coming and still accepted PC job. That may be also. Maybe this was something that was coming that he was aware of, and because he was appointed as the PC, they acted immediately. I think that's a good point. What do you think about that? I think that's something good. Matt O'Brien, I think you're onto something.
What was the question?
Well, it's more of a statement. Matt O'Brien says, I would have to believe Donlon knew this was coming and still accepted the PC job. That would make sense that he knew that they were potentially looking for documents. And then the fact that he took the appointment as PC, they decided to act immediately. So I think that's a good point. What do you think?
I don't agree. I don't agree with that at all. Like I said, I think he stepped into the. If he thought that was coming, he could have just handed the documents over. He could have nipped it in the butt originally.
That's true too. That's a good point.
He could have nipped it in the butt before it even came. I think that once he became in the public eye, a lot of people, a lot of jealousy, things like that happen, and people come after you. So, all right. So Sal Greco puts this out. I find this very interesting. The current NYPD Police Commissioner, Tom Donlon, raided by the feds the other day himself, signed a letter urging leniency for the FBI agent who was running the Russian collusion investigation at the same time taking bribes from Russia, Charles McGonigal. So this is the police commissioner. So he writes this, ready? Oh man, this is small. I'm writing this on behalf of Charlie McGonigal in regards to his upcoming sentence. I have known Charlie for over 25 years. First meeting him while we were employed as special agents for the Federal Bureau of Investigation assigned to FBI New York field office. Throughout the years, I developed both a professional and personal relationship with Charlie, jointly engaging and working foreign counterintelligence and counterterrorism investigations. I retired as a senior executive service section chief at the National Threat Center at the FBI headquarters. After retiring from the Bureau in 2009, Governor David Paterson appointed me the position of Director of Homeland Security for New York State, where I continued my relationship with Charlie and had many positive interactions, including but not limited to his sharing of investigative information with law enforcement agencies throughout New York State. In that time, I have known Charlie. He has always conducted himself with honesty, integrity, and professionalism. I witnessed firsthand his relationship with the younger personnel at the FBI and other agencies, many of whom considered him a mentor and still steadfastly support him, citing the positive impact he had on their lives and careers. Charlie has strong family values and, together with his loving wife, raised 2 college-educated children, both of whom respectful and well-mannered and reflect positive environment Charlie and his dedicated wife provided for them growing up. I am extremely disappointed and saddened in Charlie's action and hold him accountable for his misconduct and crime. However, Charlie acknowledged his poor judgment and grave mistakes and has expressed deep remorse, recognizing the shame he brought to himself, his family, his past colleagues with the FBI and other agencies. I strongly believe his deep remorse is genuine and that he will use this terrible lapse in judgment as a springboard to be a better person. I know the federal sentencing guideline provides the court with recommendations. I realize significant the possible sentence could be. In writing this letter, I hope I have provided a more complete picture of who Charlie is, that he is far more than the summary of the charges in this case. I pray that his character traits I observed in all my years working with Charlie, as well as Charlie's tireless efforts on the behalf of the United States, are considered and sentence you hand down as lenient. I sincerely appreciate your time, your consideration regarding this matter. Thank you for your invaluable and dedicated service as a jurist. Sincerely, Thomas G. Donlon.
Well, it's a character letter, right? Is Tom Donlon going to be condemned for a character letter? Not necessarily. I think the question would be, is he actually in cahoots and actually acted out with him as well? So I think that's the way to look at it. Is this a character letter, or is this just an opportunity for him to hide what he's doing behind closed doors? We don't know that. We don't know that at all. We don't have any indication to that at all. So this is a character letter. I mean, was he his friend and he went out there, committed crime, and then he wrote a character letter for him? I don't know if I'm going to knock him for that, because
I am. I am.
Well,
you're gonna write a character letter for someone taking bribes from the Russians.
Absolutely not. I didn't even get a chance to finish. But what I was saying was, I'm not going to completely condemn him and say that there's going to be a raid on his home for writing that letter. But what I'm saying is that, yeah, I'm not going to defend someone that's out there committing that crime. But is that why his home was raided? Because I think some people start to lose that because of that letter. That's why he's raided. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I'm not going to defend someone that did that. But is that going to lead to that? And that's what I was trying to get to. I'm not sure.
Is writing a character letter going to lead to that? No, but you're an FBI agent, or you're a cop, or you're anybody, and you're taking bribes from a foreign government who's seeking to take your government down. And another FBI agent writes a letter for you. Former FBI agent, actually senior executive, right? Senior executive agent. He writes a character letter for you. Why did he write that character letter? I'm not writing that character letter. You're not writing that character letter.
Absolutely. I'm not writing that. Absolutely not. No, I agree.
You're not writing that character letter. I'm not writing that character letter. I'm 100% condemning Tom Donlon for writing that character letter. And not only am I condemning him, my eyebrow's lifting. And I'm saying, wait, why'd you write that character letter? Did he call you? Did you do that under the threat or something? Did you just willingly go out and do that because you know Charlie? Was Charlie a good friend? Because maybe if Charlie was your good friend and you guys, maybe you were friends and you're like, listen, this guy's an idiot. He messed up. Be lenient on him. I could understand it then. Then maybe I could say, all right, I know this dude. He's an idiot. It's not as bad as it sounds. Whatever you want to say about it. I know I went on summer vacation with him. I know his wife. I know his kids. Like, he's not a traitor to this country. He made a mistake. He did something stupid. It's not as bad as it sounds. Then I could say, okay, maybe, maybe I understand that, right? You know the guy, you love the guy, and you're like, what did you do, bro? Like, what are you doing? I'm going to try to save you from being in jail the rest of your life, so I'll do this. But it also, I'm sure everyone on here, after reading that letter and hearing that he took bribery, you're also sitting there and saying, well, is there something in Tom Donlon's past that he doesn't want to come out as why he wrote the character letter for this individual? And could that character letter have put eyes on top of Donlon? And I think, yes. We know as a New York City Police Department, if you're employed by the New York City Police Department, your brother commits a crime unrelated to anything. Could be the stupidest thing ever. Gets into a fist fight. He gets arrested. He goes to jail, right? Gets into a fist fight. Has nothing to do with your employment. He's not a corrupt individual. He's actually a good person. Somebody attacked him. He got in a fist fight with him. He won the fight. He gets arrested. He goes to jail. And you visit him. Or you write a character letter. Or you call him on the phone while he's in jail, or he calls you on the phone in jail. What happens? You get what? You get a charge. What's that known as? Oh, yeah, that's right. Criminal association. That's right. Yeah. And what happens to you? You're put under investigation. Right? So the same shouldn't be true for a seated police commissioner.
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
shouldn't get a criminal association charge. You shouldn't get a criminal association investigation. And that's a big eye opener. I don't think it's got enough eyes on it because Sal put it out. And, you know, there's definitely nobody wants to report whatever Sal Greco puts out. I have no idea why, you know, only the brave. But I think that was a real eye opener when I saw that. I was like, what is this? What is this? And that's a criminal associate. That could 100%, not could, should spark an investigation. It's 100% should. Wait, why did you write this letter for a guy that was getting brought by the Russians for a Russian? So he's investigating the Russian collusion hoax, and at the same time that he's investigating, he's taking bribes from the Russians. That's a little bit more than just I got a bad mistake, and then. For someone to come out and write their name on that line, I'm going to say that should raise a lot of eyebrows.
Well, absolutely. That was the first thing that I thought of when Sal Greco put it out right away. I saw the hypocrisy that, well, he's the police commissioner at this point. He's writing a character letter for someone that actually committed a crime himself. So right away, we already have the hypocrisy of criminal association. And what I meant by saying we can't completely condemn him at this point and say he was involved in a committed crime. But what is it? It's a bad character trait for himself. We know that he has bad judgment because you wouldn't write that character letter. I wouldn't write that character letter. That's why I say it is relative to his position as a police commissioner, because we want someone who's in that position, who's of good character. And what does it take to have good characters? That you identify others of good character. So, of course, you and I both would not write that letter. But what I'm saying, is it enough to condemn him to say that he was involved in it? No. But is it suspicious? Yes. Sherry had put a comment here, a bad covering for bad. It could be. Absolutely. I do think it's suspicious. John, I know you think it's suspicious. It does raise the, as we talked about, it's a red flag. Why are you writing this character for this letter, for this criminal here who completely violated the oath of his office, extreme amount of power, especially at the federal level, and you could really hurt this country. Absolutely. You're pretty much a spy allowing that information to be obtained. But again, we don't know. Is this someone that he grew up with, his friends forever, or is this someone that he was actually working with? And we don't know anything about it, but it's suspicious on the surface. But talking about Sal Greco, it's a huge hypocrisy, another hypocrisy. We see hypocrisy one after another, just a huge paradox when it comes to the police department at the upper echelon in comparison to general population. And that's why this has to be looked at. Again, here's someone, that that has a sketchy character to him. I mean, listen, let's be honest. We're not completely impressed at this point with his appointment. He's there because he's an outsider to mix things up and hopefully to get out the dirty laundry. But we're not impressed by his appointment. His first press conference, he wasn't dressed in a suit. He looked kind of lackadaisical. He didn't really care to be there. He wasn't very much involved in it. We get it. He just got there. But we can see he hasn't been very much involved. He's not there to be involved in the operations. He's just there to be a babysitter. But at this point, we may need a babysitter for him as well because of suspicion. That's why I say at this point, if we look at the standard, and what do you need to have a standard? You need to have comparisons. He needs to step down immediately.
Yeah, I mean, that letter was damning. I don't know how that's not front page news. I really don't. I don't know how that's not on the cover of the Times, New York Post, Daily News. I don't know how that isn't. So good find, Sal, if he's still on here. I know you were on earlier. I think that was a damning post. John Carney says some of this is politically motivated by the far left. The alternative could be worse if he was removed from office. Eric Adams, who would replace him. So we already did that. Jumaane Williams would replace him temporarily for about 3-month period, and then there would be a special election, right? And then anybody could really win in that because it's a weird time. And again, as much as I'll always put back as you get what you vote for, it is somewhat true. And at some point, you got to just start voting with, what, I'm not living here anymore. If all you people are going to vote for these far left maniac radicals, this is how you want to live. Sorry, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to a state and I'm going to go be around like-minded people like myself. Because, could it be far worse? If the allegations are true and the mayor's office is funneling hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer money to his friends and family. If the allegations are true and that numerous laws are being broken, that the New York City Police Department is running shakedowns of businesses, both alcohol, restaurants, marijuana. If the allegations are true that the sheriff's office is also in on it, if all of those allegations are true, how the hell could it be much worse? I don't understand this argument. I've dealt with Jumaane Williams more than I think most people. I've dealt with him actually at work. I continuously go back and forth with him online. I'll tell you right now, Jumaane, I think he's not too smart. I don't think he has a good hold on public safety. I don't agree with any of his positions. I think if he's not, I don't consider him a corrupt individual. I consider him a flawed individual, like all of us. I don't agree with him on about anything, but he's not afraid to actually say what he thinks, unlike Eric Adams. And I'm saying right now that if all these things are true, Jumaane Williams for mayor. That's what I'm saying. I'm not voting for him. I'm going to, in the special election, you're damn sure I'm going to be pushing for other people. I'm going to be pushing for Joanne Ariola, more than likely. Unfortunately, I think you see the sharks are circling the water right now. You see Andrew Cuomo. He smells blood in the water. Yeah, he's getting beat up a little bit in the media. Yeah, that whole thing's coming out. Yeah, they're calling for investigations. I don't know, man. Cuomo's a hard dude. He's got a war chest. If he throws his name in the hat, not only are the far left and the middle going to vote for him, but you're going to get Republicans voting for him too. And I don't see Jumaane Williams ever staying as the mayor for more than that period. I don't even know if he runs for mayor. I don't even think he'll run, even if he's put in that position. So I can't see, if all these things are true, how could it get worse? This is what we're supposed to accept. We're supposed to just, hey, like, you know what? Eric Adams is the best thing we have right now. Yeah, he's going to collapse New York City, and none of us are going to have pensions, and all of our 401ks are going to be drained. And our property values of all the homes that we have are going to just be completely in the garbage. But hey, could have been worse. We could have Jumaane Williams. I'm not buying it. Sorry.
First of all, I'm shocked by some of the reactions that people have been taking when it comes to Mayor Eric Adams. Because I've had this argument. So I said, rhetorically speaking, this is not true. Let's say we find out today that Eric Adams and all his constituents and everyone in around him is involved in a huge drug smuggling ring, just as like we see in American Gangster, right? They're smuggling drugs from Thailand. They're having huge barrels of cocaine coming to this country, and they're actually dealing it in New York City, and they personally have their hands on it. But everything's great. Financially, you're doing well. The police department's great. All these things are in place. But they have a drug smuggling ring going on. Do we still keep him as mayor? Because someone else might be worse operationally than them? I mean, come on. Doesn't integrity count for something? If we have people actually starting to agree with this, then you're actually saying that there is a threshold for corruption, that some corruption is allowed because operationally it's going well. And I think that's what people are starting to get to at this point, that they're saying, well, you know what, there is a cloud of suspicion, but, we have to be tolerable of it because who's in line is far worse than Eric Adams. And if that's what we believe at this point, I think we lost all hope in humanity. This is absolutely ridiculous at this point. We have to be honest. We need integrity. We need people that we could actually trust. Is Eric Adams, do we believe that Eric Adams and the people in his circle are people that we could trust at this point? And the answer is absolutely no. Could we get someone worse in a special election? Sure. But we need to get people we can trust, and we need to peel back the system that we have to get to a better point. And sometimes things have to get worse before they can get better. Sometimes you have to take 2 steps back to take 3 steps forward. So that's the way that I see it.
Yeah, no, I agree. BK Sal Crook says, I've been working in New York City for 40 years, and I've never seen so much crime. And the city is filthy as well. Disgusting. So my buddy, I spoke to my buddy the other day. Big dude. He's about 6'4". He's about 260. Served a few years in prison for a violent crime that he committed. It was a bad mistake on his part. Could say that the person that he committed the violent crime against deserved it as well. So it was, twofold, but he's a big dude. He is not someone that you're gonna perceive as a target or as a victim. 6'4", 260, tattooed, bearded, served time in prison. He's not a shy person by any stretch of the imagination. He's not anyone that you're gonna look at and say, "No, I think I'm gonna rob this guy today." He's not. Whatever. He worked for the city at a point. He quit. He's no longer working for the city. He started his own business. He's doing well. He does great work. Not going to say his name. Not going to even shout out his business because no one needs to know his personal business. But he told me 2 times, leaving Home Depot, he was approached by African migrants trying to rob him. 2 times. 6'4", 260 pounds. Tattoos, muscular, beard. The dude is like, he's got the stare. He'll look right through you. He's not somebody you're gonna. He's not somebody you're gonna pick to mess with. He's just not. And he doesn't come off shy, and he's not shy. But twice, somebody attempted to rob him, and I'm like, and recently in the last couple of months, and I'm like, you. He's like, yeah, me. I'm like, get out of here. He's like, I'm telling you, dude. He's like, I'm telling you. He's like, they didn't get anything, but they tried it, And he's like, I couldn't believe. He's like, I was even like, I can't believe these guys just tried this, And he's like, I can't even believe it. And that's what's going on. And I'm like, I know I hang out the phone. I'm like, if they're robbing him, what are they doing to like all these other like guys that are just walking around New York City? It's got to be. It's crazy, man. I mean, this is again. I just like. That just shows you the state of New York. So I appreciate you, Sal. Appreciate you for weighing in on that. We got about 1,033 people in here. If you guys could just do us a favor, if you're on X, if you could like it, if you could retweet it, we appreciate it. I think we got like 30 reshares, but there's about 1,000 of you on here. So if you could do us a favor, appreciate it. A little retweet won't kill you, And then like and subscribe if you're on YouTube, Rumble, whatever else. We appreciate everybody in here. Eric, what do you think about that? 6'4", 260, and he almost got robbed twice in the last month.
It's funny. That reminds me. So there's this MMA fighter that I follow. He's a coach. His name is Ramsey Dewey, and his school is in Shanghai, China. If anybody ever wants to check him out, he's got great tutorial instructional videos. But he talks about how he's had some schools in countries, and one he talks about is Buenos Aires and Argentina. And he says, he jokes around. He says, I'm an MMA fighter, and he goes, he jokes around sometimes. He's like, I did pretty good. He goes, I only got robbed 8 times. Like, so that's, that's what we're talking about here. This is third world. We've brought third world problems to a first world nation. And now we have these third world problems. So I'm not shocked because it made me exactly think of it. If you ever check him out, Ramsey Dewey, he always talks about, he'll laugh. So like, all the countries he's been to training, and he'll laugh. Like, I have only been robbed in this place 4 times or this place 8 times. And that's what it comes down to, that, that size and, and your demeanor usually helps for the most part. But when it comes to third world problems and people that are desperate and that's their life of crime, you may be victim too.
Yeah. So Richard Kentaff says, why is it that everyone that comes into power in this administration comes under federal investigation? When are they going to investigate Adil Rana? So why is everyone comes under federal investigation? Let's see. Because every single person is getting allegations made to not only every city agency, but also to every federal investigative authority, because they're low integrity appointments. They're people who are throughout their lives who have exhibited low integrity, and that includes Eric Adams. That includes him. It's surrounded in scandal, surrounded in actions. I mean, again, I was listening to FAC NYC the other day, and I think who's in it? Harry Siegel from the Daily News. Couple other people that were on it, and like one of the guests on there was like, well, there's always just smoke. It's just smoke, it's not a big deal. Like no one's been charged, nothing's going on. They're just investigations. Like, what's the big deal? And one of the other person on the podcast goes, well, if there was this much smoke in the hotel room, would you stay? And she goes, oh, no, I wouldn't even be in the hotel room. Absolutely not. No, that's bad. The smoke's coming from everywhere. And I'm like, this is what we're all seeing, you know? So why? Because they bring it on themselves. It's their own actions. I mean, again, look what happened last Friday. What did we say last Friday? We showed the testimony of New York City Sheriff Miranda. I'm sitting there after the testimony. I'm like, wait, this guy doesn't know how much money they've seized, even though they in their account, for 2023, it showed that they seized $200 and something thousand. But he's saying they didn't seize any money. So now I'm saying, whoa, so he has no control of the money. He doesn't know what's going on with the money. He doesn't know how much money they're seizing. He's saying that they never seized money when they seized at least $230 something thousand. So we can't trust that number. Ask how many arrests are made. He has no idea. How many arrests are made at these raids that he's conducting? No idea. He knew nothing. He didn't even know how many NYPD officers were assigned to him. And I'm sitting there saying, this dude should immediately be under investigation. Right? And I think we said it. We're like, well, you're going to be shocked. Are you going to be shocked when Anthony Miranda becomes under investigation? And about 8 hours later, newspaper article comes out saying Anthony Miranda's under federal investigation. And is it because of the podcast? No, it's because of these people and what they're doing. I mean, it's because of their actions. It's because of their employees going, hey, something's not right here. It's because of civilians saying something's not right here. It's because of business owners saying, hey, by the way, they just shook me down. And then I just got shook down by the New York City Police Department. What the hell's going on here? And like, you know, that's why everyone's coming in. You know?
Sherry put a great comment here, Sherry. And this what Sherry talks about, this is true. And this is what happens a lot right now. And this is what I think is what's going on with the upper echelon of the police department. Sherry says, okay, there was a psychology study about smoke being in a room. And nobody leaves because the first person will not get up and walk out. This is real science. That's absolutely right. That's how we had the Nazis become in power. That's how we had a mandate for a vaccine that really has no science behind it. That's why we have an upper echelon of the police department where John and I believe they're all infected and compromised, is because what we've heard, and to my knowledge, and hopefully I can find the literature on it, but to my knowledge of what I've heard, is that only 2% of people actually have the fortitude to stand out and speak up in a group. So you're absolutely right. If there are people in a room and there's smoke, who's actually going to get up and say, hey, we have a problem here? Most people won't. And you're absolutely right. That's a great comment, Sherry. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So, I mean, why was his home raided? That's the question, right? That's what everyone's mind's on. He told us it was over documents. It was over documents he had in his house for 20 years. And he didn't say they were looking for it. He said they removed documents. So he had them. Why'd that come out? Right when he gets appointed to police commissioner. I'm saying right now, not because the feds are after Eric Adams. His documents got removed from his home after 20 years because people that he worked with said, that dude's got documents in his house that he never. What are those documents? We don't know. What were the federal agencies that showed up, or agencies that showed up at his house to get the federal documents? We don't know. Those things matter. What we do know is Tom Donlon wrote a character letter to someone who was taking bribes from the Russian government. That's what we do know. We do know that. That's a big piece. That's a big piece of the puzzle. That's something we do know. I'm saying right now, when we talk about that, it's under federal control. Yes, I believe it's on the when the feds are telling you you can't pick your first deputy commissioner, you can't pick your deputy commissioner of operations, you can't pick anyone within your ranks to be the New York City Police Commissioner. That's federal control. Now, does that mean that they told him to pick Tom Donlon? No, does not mean that at all. It just means you will pick someone from the outside that will not interfere into our federal investigation. So I'm saying right now, I believe that Tom Donlon was just another horrible pick from Eric Adams. I don't think that the warrant and the documents being removed are a result of the feds showing Adams that he has no power. I think they're a result of Tom Donlon's own actions and his own character.
Yeah, I think that's said beautiful. I think we could all agree that absolutely. I think Mayor Eric Adams is not in full control anymore as mayor, as he's under complete scrutiny by a federal corruption probe. I think that's exactly what happened. And that's the only best observations we can make at this point. That it was an ask by prosecutors, which is pretty much a tell that you need an outside person, but yet Eric Adams still had the opportunity to pick that outside person. It's quite interesting, right? I mean, we did feel that it was kind of suspicious at first, and there was a little bit of a flag when we heard that Tom Donlon it was a native from the Bronx. I'm like, wow, okay. I mean, most of the dais right now in the upper echelon of the police department is from the Bronx. So we weren't surprised. And where is Consafritos? That's in the Bronx, right? I'm sure right away Sal Greco's ears must have perched up, right? Wow, here we go. The Bronx, Consafritos is in the Bronx. Where do all the politicians hang out? In the Bronx. So it does seem very fitting. It doesn't, again, I don't believe in too many coincidences. And this does seem very fitting when we come to it. Drone Ranger, great comment. He says, you guys are great, but John, you are completely flip-flopping from your stance a week ago when you said there's 0% chance this was an Eric Adams pick. I don't think that's really what you said, John. I think what you said is exactly what we just said now. Would you agree? I like to.
Well, I know he's 100% right. I said there's a 0% chance that Tom Donlon was an Eric Adams pick. He's 1,000% right. I said that, but it's taken out of context. It's a 0% chance that Eric Adams wanted Tom Donlon. What I'm saying is that the feds told him to go outside, and Eric Adams didn't know where to go outside. He didn't know where to go outside. Eric Adams is not picking an old white guy. It goes completely against his stance, right? Goes completely against that. We have an image problem in the New York City Police Department. We need youth and we need diversity. Tom Donlon is neither. He's not youthful, nor is he diverse. It goes completely against the stance of what was the other thing? That it was going to be a woman. We were going to break that glass ceiling, right? So it goes completely against that. So I don't believe, yes, do I ultimately think that Eric Adams said, okay, yes, Tom Donlon's the guy? Yes, that I do believe that. What I'm saying is that Eric Adams would have never picked Tom Donlon to be the police commissioner if it wasn't a federal ask. If it wasn't a federal ask to go outside, he would have never picked Tom Donlon. Does that mean that the Fed said, you have to pick Tom Donlon? I don't think so. I don't think that that's what that means. Like I said, I think that this came from people that Eric Adams reached out to. Eric Adams reached out, I need help. More than likely, he called Bill Bratton, who pretends, oh, yeah, I think I might have known him. He called John Miller. Oh, yeah, I think I might have known him. Right? And boom, they're like, you got to pick this guy. Pick this guy. And ultimately, the decision came down from Eric Adams, but Eric Adams didn't even know the dude's name. Couldn't even pronounce his name. So you're 100% right. I said that, but there's context with that. 0% chance that Eric Adams would have ever picked him if there was not federal information, if there was not federal intervention. 0, less than 0, right? Because he's not diverse. He's not youthful. He doesn't even know the guy's name. 0% chance. What I'm saying is ultimately Eric Adams does appoint him. The feds don't appoint him. Eric Adams says, yes, Tom Donlon. But Tom Donlon, why? Because the feds told him federal ask. It was a federal ask to go on the outside. So feds tell him to go outside. He's going outside. Where's he going on the outside? I need help. Here's your guy. Old white guy. Oh, okay. 0% chance that was an Adam pick. But ultimately, did Adam say yes? Yes, ultimately Adam said yes. That's what I'm saying.
I got to say, you know what? Shout out to Drone Ranger, because that's what this is about. Friends, listen to the podcast. That's exactly what this is about. Holding feet to the fire and having great conversations. Weighing in on things that we all say and actually bringing to light and giving our perspective. I think that's awesome, Drone Rage. That's absolutely, you know what? We got to call each other out and have these conversations. I agree. I don't think that he even knew who Tom Donlon is. I agree that he went to, it wouldn't be surprised if he went to Bill Bratton, because Bill Bratton loves Eric Adams. And listen, you know what? I got to do something right now. Get me an old, pale, male-stale white guy, who's got some connections to New York City. Maybe he hangs out in the Bronx. Maybe he's been to Consafritos. Who knows? Maybe he has, but I'm sure Sal will love that. But get me somebody that is not too much of an outsider, but they're an outsider for the police department, because the reality is, Eric Adams is not picking someone that can outshine him, right? I always learn that, you don't outshine the master, right? So Eric Adams sure as hell is not going to get someone that's going to outshine him. He needs someone that has a little dirt on him, and he found the right guy. Because what did he say? He said, "I got a hell of a bench. Cass Daughtry, Tanya Consilli." He started naming them like it was the Yankees Yankee lineup. I mean, and you're looking like, that's your lineup, that's your team. But yeah, I agree, and that's what I think. When it's an ask and a tell, I believe it's a tell by the prosecutors. Like, listen, we need someone from the outside because of this probe, but we'll let you kind of pick who it is. Maybe they're involved in like giving the okay or not. I don't know. I mean, that seems a little much of too much Marxist kind of political driven ideology, but could it be? Yeah. I mean, there's nothing that I would put past anymore in New York City. I'm reading right now stuff in 1901 and stuff about this William Devery guy right now. Now that you put it out here, whoever friend was that put it on, I appreciate it, by the way. But again, I don't think we've ever seen anything like this. This is something we've never seen before. And hopefully the value that comes out of this is that we learn how to move forward. If something like this ever happens again, that we can easily turn this around quickly. But I'm with you, John. I know what you were saying. I understand the context of it. But again, we need him to step down again. We're going to need another police commissioner. And here's the question, before we even talk about Varma, where do we get the next police commissioner from? Where?
Well, I think Ron Layson summed up what I was trying to get at. Simply put, John, it was not an Adams pick, but it was an Adams appointment. Exactly. Very well said. That's exactly what I was trying to get at. It wasn't his pick, 100%, but it was his appointment, 100%. And that's just what I think at that point, because what was reported was that it was an ask to go to the outside. So people are saying, oh, so the feds appointed Tom Donlon, and I'm saying, no, they didn't. They didn't. Your feds are going to appoint him and then raid him to make Adams look bad? Come on. If the feds are going to say you're taking Tom Donlon's house is not getting raided because they already know everything about it. They already did their background on him. They know everything on him. They know he has those documents or doesn't have those documents. So no, I'm not buying that. I don't buy it. Listen, is it possible? Every scenario that everyone's given on here is possible because, again, this is all just perspective and opinion. So everything everyone's saying is possible, but I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. Before we get back to the police commissioner, Tom Donlon, the interim police commissioner, house being raided 1 week after Ed Caban, the former police commissioner who stepped down because his house was raided by the feds. I just want to notify everybody today, front steps of City Hall, 12 p.m., Varmagate, right? And that is Dr. Jay Varma. He was caught by the Mug Club, Steven Crowder, in an undercover sting where he admitted to, while New York City was under lockdown, while people like myself, Marlon, other people were forced into doing something they didn't want, and others took something and they were lied to by men like Jay Varma, the architect of the mandates, person who was bragged about it on a date trying to impress a girl. The mandates almost a year and a half after the pandemic. He admitted to having drug-fueled sex parties during the height of the lockdowns. During the height of you couldn't do anything, he's having drug-fueled sex parties with him, his wife, and their friends, with numerous individuals. So complete sexual deviant, completely admits to all the lies in those videos. If you guys haven't, go over to Steven Crowder's Mug Club, check out all that stuff. But New Yorkers are going to stand up today. Mug Club's going to be there. There's going to be some representatives from them. Teachers for Choice will be there. Bravest for Choice is going to be there. Common Sense Caucus for New York City Council is going to be there. And they're going to demand that two things. They're going to demand an investigation into Jay Varma. Again, this affects all of us. Everything that Jay Varma put into place affected all of us in New York City. It affected your ability to visit your parents in nursing homes, your ability to visit your parents in the hospital, your ability to get into certain locations to go out to eat, your child's ability to learn, your child's growth. Maybe you have a child who's disabled, who has speech impediment, who has all of these type of things, and basically set our children back 2.5 years. So there's not anyone in New York City that either worked for or lived in New York City that was untouched by the lies that men like Jay Varma told. So they're going to be on the steps in New York City. They're asking everyone if you could join, to please join, to get all-out support. Again, however we stood during the mandate, whether we were for it, against it, we didn't know. This is something that is bipartisan, and everyone should be out there demanding two things: that not only is he investigated, but people like Marlon Bethel are reinstated. Marlon Bethel lost his career for absolutely no reason, and Jay Varma admits to that fact inside of that video. The evidence is irrefutable. There is no more argument. There's no more argument around it. It doesn't matter who was right, who was wrong. Doesn't matter. The evidence is irrefutable at this point, and the things that we were told were lies. People like Marlon Bethel, firefighters, nurses, teachers, detectives, cops, sergeants, lieutenants, anybody you could think of lost careers, lost jobs. It's time for justice. So if you're available today, please go to City Hall, 12 p.m. Couldn't make it. I will be in New York City later in the week. I couldn't push my trip forward. I had prior engagements that I had to deal with here prior to that. But I will be reconvening on all this. So if you guys are around, please join them.
Prison for Varma. That's all I have to say. Absolutely. Put him in prison. First of all, he made thousands of lives uncomfortable temporarily. But what did he also do? He changed some people's lives forever. Just as you just mentioned, Marlon Bethel. And Marlon Bethel is one of many, but we know Marlon very well and we support him. But he's one of many that their lives would change forever because of this animal. Prison for Varma. That's the only thing that can come out of this. Prison for Varma and prison for de Blasio also, because those two made everyone that resided in New York City was affected by these two animals. And for some people, their lives would change forever. Absolutely, including you, John. Your life is changed forever because we're on a better path now, but your life was changed forever because of them. So, I thank you, brother, for standing up against this mandate and standing in the face of adversity. And it's led to this point that we have this podcast and, together we get to speak about the atrocities that go on in New York City, especially with the NYPD. And hopefully, because we have friends and listeners to this podcast and we're all speaking out together, that stuff like this doesn't happen again. Look at this picture. You could almost put this hat on Eric Adams and it's the same picture. History does repeat itself. The best reflection of the future is a reflection of the past. And we see it right here. And unfortunately, we see it right now. It's far more egregious now than it was then.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Juju, I'll be in town end of the week, my friend. So you and your buddies could come visit me. I'll be doing a couple of speaking events there. Tickets are on sale now. I'll put out that data later. Fucking losers. So yeah, this is Jimmy Walker. This is the man he stepped down in 1932, the night mayor or the nightclub mayor. So we're talking about the feds raiding the residence of interim NYPD Police Commissioner Tom Donlon. Yeah, I mean, so everything right now is speculation. Everything right now is speculation. I think we could sum it up over here. Let's go around one more time. Again, like I said, I think that we heard from Marcia Kramer that his appointment was an ask from federal prosecutors. Not his appointment, but an appointment from the outside. Clearly, he's not someone of the background, the looks, the ethnicity that Eric Adams would appoint. He's not youthful. He's not diverse. That's what Eric Adams touts himself as, a champion of diversity. The appointment of an old white man is 100% not that, right? That is 100% not that. So I don't believe that ultimately, although he was appointed by Eric Adams, I don't believe he was a pick of Eric Adams. I don't believe that this shows the fact his home was raided shows that the feds are sending a message to to Eric Adams. I think it really just shows that Tom Donlon has a lot of questionable things, like all of us. We've all lived lives, right? If you get appointed, if Eric gets appointed the police commissioner tomorrow, there's going to be complainants that come out of the woodwork. There's going to be people that come out of the woodwork to say things about him, whether frivolously, whatever it is. And that goes for every single person here. I think Sal Greco did a good job of highlighting one thing that should raise everybody on here's eyebrows, which is the fact that he wrote a letter for someone who's confused, not only accused, but convicted of taking bribes from the Russian government at the same time he was chairing the federal probe into the Russian collusion hoax. So someone of very questionable integrity, and he wrote a character letter for him asking to keep him out of jail. Why somebody would do that? That raises a lot of eyebrows. And like we said, if our own brothers, as member of the New York City Police Department, got into a fist fight and got put in jail for something that's not corruption orientated, something that you wouldn't be considered a traitor for, something that you might even agree with what he did, but he gets convicted in a court of law. If you wrote a character letter for him or visited him and spoke to him on the phone, you would be put under investigation for criminal association. And I think that possibly is what could have happened here as well. So there's a lot of scandal, a lot of things. We know that he said that the feds raided his residences, not one, but multiple, and they removed paperwork that he had for 20 years. So there were documents that were removed from him that he still had. What those documents were, we don't know. I guess we'll find out.
So I think we definitely identified at this point that there's different theories on why Tomlin was appointed to PC. I think we could pretty much sum up the preponderance of evidence would say that it was an ask, which is really a tell by the prosecutors, for Eric Adams to find an outside appointment. I don't even think Eric Adams had any idea who Tom Donlon is. I think that we've made the assumption, I think based on our observations, that he was guided by either Bill Bratton or John Miller or another source on to find an old male and pale, stale white male to get back to where it was, different appearance. So it looks like he's playing ball. But of course, they found someone who has a little dirt on them. But I think we could all agree that there is a complete hypocrisy here, and we see the hypocrisy in the wrongful termination of Sal Greco, because based on his criminal association, the fact that he did write a character letter for someone that was convicted of a very serious crime, not someone like Roger Stone that was pardoned, which means they do not have a record. This person actually committed crime. So just on that alone, the hypocrisy, he violated the NYPD patrol guide with criminal association. So he should not have been ever appointed as the police commissioner. But of course, the bench of the police department is infected and compromised. We cannot go there also. So for the next appointment, and then, if we look at standards, Tom Donlon has to step down immediately. Everything you do when you're in law enforcement is related to your law enforcement. Off-duty and on-duty conduct is weighed the same. John and I did an episode on the disciplinary matrix, and supposedly the disciplinary matrix was modified and amended under Key Chan Sewell, and it was supposed to be better for the cops. And what we found, it was absolutely a farce. It was quite the opposite. And when it came to the disciplinary matrix, there was more scrutiny and actually more discipline when it came to off-duty conduct, which I think is reflective of the police commissioner. Any conduct that you have on duty, off-duty, past life, and present life is reflective and important when it comes to your position in law enforcement. And I think we could sum it up right there. I want to thank the friends and listeners to the podcast. Thank you so much for being with us. Now we're about an hour, 50 minutes into it. Close to 2 hours. Thank you so much. We will be back normal time, 8:05 live Eastern time, 5:05 Pacific time. If anybody wants to get up bright and early when it's still dark on the West Coast. Thank you, everyone, for weighing in. Your comments are so important to us. John, let's bring it to Tom.
Yeah, absolutely. 8:05 tomorrow, people. We're gonna discuss the body camera video of the shooting in transit. We're gonna go through that. We'll walk through all that, as well as whatever breaks today. I'm sure it's gonna be another busy week in New York City, and we're gonna be left with even more confusion. And who knows? Things are gonna change, opinions are gonna change, my stance might change, Eric's stance might change. As more facts come, your stance might change. As more facts come, I mean, that's what's gonna, that's what the things are gonna change. So I think it's gonna be another exciting week on New York City, especially surrounding the NYPD. So we appreciate all of you, 1,230 people. We appreciate everybody. If you guys like what you hear, please just give us a like, subscribe, share it out, and we'll be back at you 8:05 live tomorrow. Like we said, this is all politically created crisis. And check out our good friend Tom Sullivan. Tom Sullivan is the Republican, Conservative, and Common Sense Party candidate for New York State Assembly District 23. Tom is a financial professional who served simultaneously in the United States Army Reserve for 30 years and has now retired. His district covers Ozone Park, Lindenwold, Howard Beach, Broad Channel, and the Rockaway Peninsula.
Come November, I would empower our law enforcement agencies to go out there and do their job and not put them or their families or their pensions at risk for doing their jobs. We need drastic change in Albany so that we have a say in this matter, and they realize people of New York State will hold them accountable.
The Sullivan family has a legacy of service. Tom served for 30 years protecting and defending the rights of others. Come this November, he has earned your support. This advertisement's paid for by the Friends of Tom Sullivan.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community. But who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed or call us directly on 888 901 Blue. That's 888 901 Blue.